In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.
Welcome to District Divided, a DC sports podcast. I am Amit. That is Matt. That is K-Dot. That is LC. It is good to see you all as always, and we have got an action-packed episode for you guys as always. We're going to begin with the Washington football team. They survived a game in Atlanta, winning 34-30. We're going to get into the game recap. We're going to talk about Dustin Hopkins, a fan favorite, clearly, and what sort of characters we believe could replace Dustin Hopkins, because heart attacks every single week. I can't keep doing this. I cannot keep doing this. Matt, our hockey expert, is then going to give us a Washington Capitals preview. Hockey season is right around the corner. So we're going to talk about our hockey team and the expectations for the season. And then we're going to get into the no-hate debate. For those of you that saw the Baltimore Ravens on the very last play of the game, of a game that was completely finished, ran a play to get over 100 rushing yards for the 43rd straight time, tying a record with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you have a problem with it? Yes or no? And what other unwritten rules need to go away from sports? And then we conclude with the State of the Union, your DC sports wraparound coverage segment, as always, covering the Washington Spirit. Very eventful stuff going on there. DC United, the Washington football team, of course, the Capitals, the Wizards. But actually, guys, I would like to begin with baseball because it is playoff time. Elsie, we've talked to you in the past about watching a playoff baseball game. Might be a good time to do it. At the time of this recording, the Yankees and Red Sox are going to play. And then tomorrow, well, I guess today, the Cardinals are going to be taking on the Dodgers. So, guys, is playoff baseball one of the best things ever? That's the first question, because I think it is. And this is more to Inside LC. And are you looking forward to any particular team in there? Matt, why don't we begin with you?
Well, I've warned this podcast from day one that this was going to be a fun baseball season. It was a crazy season. The AL wildcard race went down to game 162. There were potentially four teams all fighting for that final spot. I was pulling for the Mariners. I think it would have been fun. They haven't made the playoffs since like Griffey was on the team, or at least maybe since like Ichiro was on the team. So I was pulling for them, but unfortunately or fortunately, we got Yankees, Red Sox for a wild card. One game, to see who becomes that 14 in the playoffs. So I'm pretty pumped. The team I'm looking forward to is been kind of the miracle team all year. That's San Francisco Giants. They're the one seed, and they were hot in April, May, June, and after each month, everyone says they're just going to fall off. The Dodgers will catch them, and the Dodgers kept winning, and they kept winning. So they're kind of a miracle team. No one really knows like why they keep winning, but they do, and I think it's just kind of fun when the Giants are good. So I'm rooting for the Giants just because everyone says they shouldn't be that good. They're the best team in baseball this year, so hopefully they keep it going.
Would it be a problem if Nats fans rooted for the Dodgers, for example, because Trey Turner and Max Scherzer are there?
Yeah, I think it's lame to root for the Dodgers. High payroll. If you want to root for Trey, fun for Max, I get it. We want them to have good seasons, but like they both already have World Series with the Nats. So like you don't have to root for them to go get a second one. Like they don't need it. Their legacy's fine. And the Dodgers are a lame team to root for. So no. Okay. I was actually rooting for the Padres all year long. They had an epic collapse in the second half of the year, so I don't like the Dodgers. But aside from that, yeah, it should be a fun playoff.
Yankees Red Sox is just a classic rivalry. Do you guys? K-Dot, question for you. Growing up, I felt like because in DC the Nats weren't there until later, so it was the Orioles for a lot of us. But then there was also just like. There were always those kids. It was the Yankees or the Red Sox. The Yankees or the Red Sox. Everywhere you went. Where did you land on that?
I was a Yankees kid. Big time. Huge Yankees guy. Shut the fuck up, Detroit. I not having a baseball team here in DC. You had Baltimore that was right up the highway, right? But you also had this asshole that was in the front office named Peter Angelos that because of TV rights fought against every possibility for Washington having a team throughout my entire childhood. So if you think I was rooting for the fucking Baltimore Orioles, kiss my ass. It wasn't going to happen. I love Cal Ripken. Everybody loves Cal Ripken. But I hate the Orioles because of Peter Angelos. And the Yankees were just easy to follow. They had their own network. They were always talked about. And every once in a while, you could go up the Turnpike and watch them play at Orioles Park, or Camden Yards. So it made it easy. So baseball season right now, Red Sox, Yankees. While I am a diehard Nats fan, ever since those games you could basically get free tickets at RK because nobody cared. I remember that. I remember when Ryan Zimmerman first got called up and being there at the games and all that. Like, I remember those days. So I'm not as diehard a Yankees fan, but there's still a little part of me deep inside that when I hear that it's playoff baseball and they're going to be at Fenway Park, I remember Kurt Schilling in that food coloring sock. And I remember all that bullshit. And I want the Yankees to stomp a mud hole in that Red Sox ass and then walk that bitch dry. Like, that's where I'm at with it. Fuck the Red Sox. I kind of like the city of Boston, but fuck the Red Sox.
All right, yeah. So I was more on the Red Sox side. My buddy Josh Johnson was a huge Red Sox fan. So, like, Kurt Schilling, you mentioned the guy you
Fake
described as
ass
an
sock.
But
Fake
Johnny Damon was cool.
Ass sock.
Like,
hey, Damon. I mean, now you're triggering Red Sox fans.
Well, yeah, because I'm doing a terrible job. LC, question for you. Set the over-under on the number of innings you're going to watch of playoff baseball.
Oof. So this is making me think, like, if we can get like more crowd, like moments in the crowd and I can see people fighting, like, and then I'll watch that. I mean, the sport itself, but like this rivalry I'm interested in. Now, the innings themselves, I don't know. I'm going to go with, so how many games are in the series? Up to 7?
No, this wild card is one game.
One game.
One
wild card is
it's one game?
Which
tonight.
makes it exciting. Yeah.
It's tonight, the night that we're recording.
Well, being tonight, the night that I'm recording, I cannot watch it, but I would probably watch half a game if that were the case.
Half a game? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's more than I thought. I thought it was
Wildcard games are dumb.
The second horse.
Wildcard games are done?
I just think it kind of follows the antithesis of everything else of baseball is, which is like you drag everything out. Like, even if it just feels unbaseball-like to not drag this out unnecessarily.
We talked about that with the NBA playoff, right? Like, it's pretty simple. What do they call it? The tournament? The play-in?
Yeah.
The
play-in.
Well, but the play-in kind of makes sense that it's short because it's like these extra games. I do agree. It is silly. The whole baseball playoffs is silly. That's 162 games. Barely anyone makes the playoffs, right? It's just it's really just 4 teams per league.
Like, we can't do a best out of 3. Like, it's no time at all.
Yeah.
It's fucking baseball, guys. What is that? It's dropping the bucket.
Up against the clock.
Sell some hot dogs.
Yeah, like, no idea why it is, but I think I do like it. I do like it like that. It's so stupid. It makes no sense, but I don't know. It's just like one game, and this Dodgers team that's 106 wins could just go down. Scherzer has a bad start.
That's what I'm saying. So
thanks for coming. Can
I quickly just mention? So for me, for those that don't know, the Giants 107 wins on the season. As Matt had mentioned, he's rooting for them. And one of the wild card teams is the LA Dodgers with 106 wins. And the only reason they're not a division winner is because they're in the exact same division as the Giants. So the Giants win the division and the Dodgers get pegged down. I think both teams get screwed. So, like, the Dodgers obviously want to win against the Cardinals. And then when they do, if and when they do, in my opinion, they're going to play the Giants. Like, it sort of, I feel like, punishes both teams. The proposal I have for those listening, and we, huge viewership here. Shout out Facebook for pushing District Divided. Yeah, all that inflammatory stuff over there. But I think that playoff teams, from the top seed to the bottom seed, should be able to pick their opponent. Put it on TV and let people watch your team pick somebody or get picked by another team. I think that would make for exciting TV.
With like a provocative tagline. So we pick the Dodgers because we're gonna fuck them in the
right, exactly. Why'd you pick them? There's like
do you think they'd pick anyone? Do you think they'd pick anyone other than the worst record team?
Yeah, if they match up better, for example. I think there are plenty of times in basketball, for example, that you would have a 3-6 matchup or a 4-5 where the Wizards, I remember one year, matched up so much better with the Bulls than other teams that the Bulls, despite having home court, did not want to play us. And we ended up beating them, I think, 4-2, 4-1.
Do you pick the 8-seed Lakers or the 6-seed whoever?
There you go. So, that's a much better example.
I really think that what you end up going to happen, and something we'll talk about later, is another unwritten rule in sport. What'll end up happening, just because everybody's so fucking PC, is that it would just be an understanding that you'd pick the least seeded team. I think naturally that is something that would happen. Because if there's one thing that Oregon sports franchises don't want to do, is like poke the bear. Like Bill Belichick, you don't want to give anybody bulletin board material. It would just be, hey, we're just going to do it that way because that's the way our fathers played it, that's the way our grandfathers did it, and it's cool with us. That's what would happen.
But K-Dot, imagine Pittsburgh. Now, this year they're ass, so this won't happen. But imagine Pittsburgh's like the 1 seed, and they pick Baltimore, who's 3, because they're just like, no, these are these are the guys that we go against. They're our bitch, and we're just going to go ahead and knock them out right now, round one. That's what we're going to do.
I can
that
imagine
would
the
make
shitty politics in all of it. There would be, you have the coaches saying one thing, you got the owners saying, we're not playing that small-ass market team, we're playing the big guys because we want ratings. It'd just be a nightmare. Well, I like it because, I mean, controversy, bullshit, unnecessary stuff that ESPN can talk about at length. All right, cool. But it's just, I just see this as being a lot more messy than it is good necessarily. I just want to play the games. Because at the end of the day, this is something I've heard you say. I know that I agree. There is no more exciting thing in sports than playoff baseball. To me, as far as like the actual act of just the theater of all of it. That's all I need. Just give me that theater. That's it. Give me Kurt Schilling with the food coloring packet in his sock, like when the slow drip. Like, give me that shit. That's what I want to see.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's move on. We talked about Pittsburgh, Baltimore a little bit. To football, the Washington football team now 2-2 on the season. The defense still fucking sucks, but thankfully we have a guy named Taylor Heinicke who's playing out of his mind right now. Team is averaging 28.3 points per game when he has been the starting quarterback this season. That is good for 7th in the NFL behind the LA Rams. Matt Stafford leading the LA Rams. Kadeen and I have him as our MVP pick. LC, we're going to begin with you. What were your thoughts on the game? And Dustin Hopkins, we're going to get to him in a moment. But start with your thoughts on the game, and then we'll get to Dustin Hopkins. What do you think?
Okay. I'll reserve my thoughts on the latter until later. So I was able to catch the highlights or the recap, whatever it is. It's, like a 15-minute recap on YouTube, which was a nice way to watch a game, actually. It takes a lot less time. But it was still really fun to watch that, especially in a high-scoring game. I thought, obviously they're only showing you the best plays, but I thought Taylor Heinicke had an excellent game. What I was really pleasantly surprised to see was him running for it a few times, making the decision to go for it. I think a couple of times, especially early, he dove just short of the first one, maybe by a yard or two. But then in a couple of other rushes, he actually, took it. And I think, if you add that option to the guy, like, he only becomes much more dangerous. And I think that was really interesting to see. I don't know if that's a part of his game. Like, I don't know enough to know, but I was like, all right, we'll take it. So that was really interesting. And then the other thing, just as I remember talking about, and I think it was in the preseason, how like, maybe it was the first game of the season, how like at every third down, the defense had crumbled. I do like from this game that when the game was on the line, when things were under pressure, the team showed up, and, being down 2 points, I think it was 30-28, amazing touchdown by Heinicke. And I think that was sort of the opposite of what we had talked about in the first game, of the team crumbling when the things were really, really important in those plays. In this game, they showed up. I'm not going to talk about the kicker yet, but in this game, they showed up when there was pressure. Good defense on the last drive as well, to prevent, any option of coming back for the opponent.
Yeah, I mean, this team cannot get off the field on third down. But like you said, when it mattered most, at 30-28, because Atlanta had a shot to close this game out, they did show up and they did get off the field, thankfully. K-Dot, we've got our preview show that releases on Friday. We'll get to some of this, but what were your thoughts on the game against the Falcons?
Taylor Heinicke's the fucking man. Outside of Taylor Heinicke being the fucking man, unless you were listening to Amit, as you should have, because you should be watching his podcast every fucking week, or his show every fucking week. No one could have ever told me, or anyone, you wouldn't think we're high on something, that Taylor Heinicke is the reason we're not 0-4. Like, that to me that's crazy. But the craziest part about it is that defense fucking blows right now. Jonathan Allen's playing great football. Montez Sweat has come on at times in these games. I mean, he's got, I think, 3 sacks or something, or 4 sacks in 3 games or something stupid. There are certain things on the defense that you can highlight, and you're like, okay, I like what this guy might be doing individually. But still, there's no chance you look at that murderer's row that we have coming up and think that if this defense plays the way it does, I'm sorry, Taylor, you're not going to be able to outscore these guys if they're going to be able to put up as many points as it looks like. I mean, one of my favorite guys to watch on Twitter is Brian Baldinger, when he breaks down a lot of the plays and what he was showing on the Washington defense, not this last, but the game before, as far as they can score at will against us if we're playing the way that we're playing. The miscommunications happening in the secondary are ridiculous. William Jackson's not on the same page with anybody playing safety. We see just all these things. You just got a guy streaking around the field. Then same at mid-level as far as linebacker play, which was one of my biggest concerns going into this season. Jamin Davis, whatever, barely played that I could notice. But now you got John Bostic, who's been a liability, is now injured. There's a lot of things that I look at that defense, and the only thing, like, it's just red alert, the entire game. Just, this shouldn't happen. Atlanta fucking sucks. They were a playoff team, in my opinion, before the beginning of the season. I'm a fucking idiot. So, like, that's where we're at. We've got 2 wins against Atlanta and New York. There's nothing to hang our hats on, especially when our defense is looking as trash as they are. We need to figure something out on defense badly now.
Yeah.
The ones were close, too.
Yeah.
Ooh, they've been so close. They've been so close. And in fact, I mean, we probably should have lost the Giants game, despite how well, Heinicke played, because there was that late game interception. LC, we need to get to it. I need to ask you, Matt Regan is, to me, a pretty accomplished soccer player, knows how to use his feet, things like that. And Dustin Hopkins, 1 of 3 on extra points, and his lone field goal made was 21 yards out. 21. Do you think Matt could be a better kicker than Dustin Hopkins for this team?
Yes.
He's got that Detroit stank on him. It don't work.
No, Jason Hansen is one of the most accomplished kickers in NFL history.
Look at him. He knew it. He had it queued up. He knew where I was going with him.
Matt Prater, arguably the best kicker when he was in Detroit. Kickering is actually the one thing that we do decently well. I don't know who our current kicker is, but whatever, it's fine.
I have a solution. I have a solution for DC. You don't even have to go far. Look, DC United has a 3rd goalkeeper, which means they never get to play. Like, 3rd goalkeepers play, I don't know. You need the rest of the team to get COVID, I guess, in these days. But before that, you needed 3 injuries to happen. He is earning $160,000. That's his contract at DC United. Dustin Hopkins is making $2.some million. All I'm saying is a goalkeeper who's 33. So, like, he's like, what? Come on, like, just switch now. Like, you don't have that much left in soccer.
You're a kicker.
If he can hit goal kicks 50, 60 yards, how different can it be to hit the football? I'm just saying, there's a keeper right there who's not playing much, who's making 1/10 of the salary, who could just make a quick move.
I'm just surprised that 3rd-string goalkeepers in the MLS make $160,000.
Yeah, that is impressive. Shout out to MLS. Hey, moving on up, but
there we go.
Shout out to them.
Take more money from the women to pay the 3rd place kicker. All right, let's go. All right. What Washington did make a move as far as the kicker on the practice squad. We signed an all-time Hall of Fame. You don't want this guy being named what he's named to be your kicker. Chris Blewett. Chris fucking Blewett. That's who you want? I'm sorry, on name alone. You shouldn't be doing this, Chris.
No, imagine the adversity that he has gone through to become a kicker.
He should be a whistleblower or something like a jazz band. He does not need to be a kicker.
But at least you know kicking is his passion with that last name, because there were many opportunities to quit, and here he is. Pitt Panther legend Chris Blewett has been signed to the practice squad. He's a kicker. There are going to be many Blewett jokes if he ends up missing a big kick.
Yeah, the same. You remember all the Graham Gano jokes? Come on, man.
But Gano ended up being all right. Gano
ended up being good, yes, when he was off the team.
I know, but that happens with every kicker we have.
So you want Blewett blowing it for us and then doing all kinds of shit for Detroit or something?
Why is it so hard?
Why? Okay, Elsie had a question. Why is it so hard? Truth be told, it is different. I don't think it's a whole lot more different, because if you are just getting under the ball and you're not kicking for power, so if it's like 50 plus, it can be difficult, but it's already difficult for NFL kickers.
Course.
But if you're kicking for accuracy, I think you could do it. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe I'm naive. I think you could do it.
It's not only a hot take. I go back to something I think I said on this podcast a long time ago. Get rid of kicking in football. It's stupid. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else that is happening in the game. It feels alien when it happens. It's really, really dumb.
K-Dot, here's the thing. We can coach it out of the game. We could just choose not to kick. It's not like we're required by law to kick. We can just go for it.
No. Those are 3 points you need sometimes. And as long as they're available, you have to go take it. But football itself should not have kicking in it. It makes no sense.
Wait, do you think it should just be touchdowns and like safeties? And there should
the most
be no...
I say, as far as the foot being used on a ball, punts maybe, but there are some ways you can eliminate punting. I like kickoffs, but they're unnecessary, especially with the kickoff rules. They're not exciting anymore. So you take the ball.
Hold on. DeAndre
Carter. All right, hold on. Listen.
All right.
Here, I'm gonna give me a moment. I used to tell this to people. Like, if I blindfolded you, put you on the side of 495, right by the mixing bowl, and put a pot of gold on the other side of the highway, and I said, go across the highway and you get this pot of gold. If you do it and get the pot of gold, doesn't mean you made a wise decision. It means you got lucky. DeAndre Carter, learn how to let the fucking ball bounce out of the back of the goddamn end zone.
We're not criticizing him for scoring.
No, it was amazing. But every other time, we're starting at our 22 because he wants to take it out, and he's not getting to the 25. Not to mention, I know my butt puckered up. Your butt probably puckered up when he caught that goddamn punt, and dude was breathing on him.
Wait, hold up. But is there really like a different scoring percentage of starting at the 22 versus 25?
Not here.
And not when you have Taylor Heinicke.
Secret Base did do something on this. So let me go. I'm going to find that video and come back to you with that information because I remember being really, really adamant about this after watching that. So I'll confirm. Just saying, there's some times where it works out in your benefit, but DeAndre Carter needs to understand those are situations where you can let the ball bounce and just take the field position sometimes. But it did work out. Bravo. I love you, son. I love you.
Fair enough. I do think LC makes a compelling case, though, because a third string goalkeeper, if you gave him a week, 2 weeks, something like that, just if his only job's to kick a ball, is to kick a football.
Well, but
I think he can figure it out.
But that's
you don't
also
think that's
something
been done?
that I'm confused.
I'm not sure it's been done. I'm actually not sure it's been done.
I'm sure in some college.
You don't think?
I'm sure in some college they go to the soccer.
I mean, these guys
at the pro level. At the pro level, I don't think it's been.
You don't think he's ever kicked field goals before? I'm sure he has.
For kicks, but he's still trying to make it as a soccer player. Someone's got to crush his dreams and let him know that he needs to be the kicker for the Washington football team.
You're not
he probably just doesn't want
that.
He probably just doesn't want that smoke. He's like, dude, $160K to just show up at practice every day.
Okay, here you go. Would you rather? But I know you, Matt. So we did the $5 million. We did $5 million in glory, or $25 million nothing. So I guess it sort of flipped. $160K to do absolutely nothing. Sorry, I'm sure he does stuff in practice. 160.
Take shots.
160,000, more or less not see the field, or $2 million, but you got some pressure on you, including potential glory.
I mean, 160 is. I mean, at the point, I would like it if it was like 800K versus 2.5 million. Then I'd take the 800K. But there's a big difference between 2.1 and 1.
So you would probably try kicking. I would go for it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay. So we should probably talk to this guy.
Because I'm just saying there are some kickers that aren't allowed in certain cities. Like after the experiences they've had. I'm just saying it's like
lace this out.
You might be public enemy number one depending on how you perform.
The thing is,
there's a lot of smoke.
We're definitely bantering.
Try it.
We're definitely bantering Dustin Hopkins because this was a poor performance. But he has also. Hey, listen, against the Giants, did he miss? Yes, but then did he make it on the second one? He did, to his credit, and he also had a very good game. We know what he is. He is a good kicker that misses some big kicks. But there are a whole lot of those in the NFL, and that's also true. It's not like Dustin Hopkins is the lone kicker problem. So many of these NFL teams have a problem with their kickers. So just to be clear,
Okay, that's for another time, but like that's the part that I really want to like understand, because to be honest, you play once a week, right? Which means for 6 days you are kicking a ball. Like how can you not get so good to the point that there's no way you'll miss? Like I don't understand that.
No,
I think it's all mental. I think the kicking thing is completely, which is why I've tried not to be too hard on Dustin Hopkins, because I have heard that there's some things going on in his family, in his life, off the field this year.
We should have started.
I get it, but that's why I haven't been wrecking. I just think kicking should be eliminated.
You waited for all of us to say whatever we wanted to say, and we're like, by the way, he's got some stuff going on.
100%. So,
Dustin Hopkins, I apologize.
I didn't say anything bad.
but I just also watch just outside of the Dustin Hopkins thing before you guys destroy a man who's probably depressed. Shout out to Terry McLaurin. Great fucking game. Just throw it to Terry. Antonio Gibson, good fucking game. I think the longest one was 11 yards. He still averaged over 5 yards carry, I think. Or no, maybe not 5 yards, but it was consistent. It was good. They got Jared Patterson the ball a few times, which I like to see. And J.D. McKissick, no, not J.D. McKissick. Yeah, J.D. McKissick. Yeah. I was getting him and Jared McKinney mixed up for some reason. J.D. McKissick, dude, he's a baller. Like when you just give him an opportunity. That's why I'm just glad Peyton Barber's off the team. But there are a lot of good things happening for the offense, and it's crazy that the offense is the strongest part of this team. But we also saw a guy who returned. It isn't even 100%, and every one of his catches early on in the game was for a first down. Curtis Samuel is going to be something special to watching this team going forward. This offense is exciting. We just need the defense to play better.
Looking forward to staying on defense watch. And as K-Dot had mentioned, I mean, the NFL is just crazy. We thought the defense was our strength. We got a backup quarterback who obviously we're all very, very high on. All of us, all four of us, very, very high on, doing great, great things right now. But that's just the way it breaks out sometimes. K-Dot, one final thought before we move on to the Caps. Go ahead.
Sammis Reyes.
Yes.
Might be happening very, very soon because of the injury to Logan Thomas. So, our podcast, your number one, you say Sammis Reyes. Your number one Sammis Reyes podcast right here, Dish Divided. Just know we're the number one fans, buddy. Hall of Fame tight end. Just need you in there getting Taylor to throw you that football. Great, great things coming.
Beautiful. And Dustin Hopkins, you're welcome to come on and shit on all of us too. It's equal. It's equal. We're totally happy to have that happen as well. Let's move on to the ice. To our Washington Capitals, who are not too far removed from being world champions at one point, or NHL champions. Matt is going to walk us through just a quick breakdown on how we feel the season's going to go, who to look out for, etc. The roster tends to stay mostly the same. Anything change? Matt, the floor is yours. Talk to us about the Washington Caps this season.
Honestly, I did a season preview for the pod last year, and I'm going to say almost the same exact thing because the roster is so identical to what it was back then. I mean, if you look at the top 8 to 10 players on this team, no new faces on it. I guess you could say Jacob Vrana was traded for Anthony Mantha last year. That's maybe a trade. We covered that. But other than that, it's your core. It's Ovechkin. It's Backstrom. It's Oshie. It's Kuznetsov. It's Karlsson, Orlov in the back end. Samsonov is a goalie. The only maybe major change would be, Vanacek was picked up in the expansion draft. But other than that, nothing new. A couple small moves. I think picked up Dylan McGrath to Matt Corath to a two-way contract. But again, it's all just small pieces that'll probably be a lot of healthy scratches throughout the year. So I like this team. I mean, of course, you have to keep running it back when the core is this old, this committed. You're not going to blow it up when you still have a fighting chance. I don't think they're anywhere near favorites to win the cup. I think odds-wise, they're 13th or 14th best in the league. I still expect them to be a playoff team. The East, I mean, you would say, I mean, they're rivals. Pittsburgh didn't really get much better. Boston, I think, got actually a fair bit worse. So you play all that up. I still like where they're standing in the division. I think the Islanders would probably be the favorites, and the Caps will be right there with the Bruins, the Pens, and the Flyers right there. So should be another fun year, but not the preseason favorites like they were maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure.
And one thing to keep in mind too is they've not won a playoff series since their Stanley Cup. So
yes,
if people are getting a little angsty, I think there's that's pretty justified.
Okay, so a couple quick follow-up questions, and thank you for that. So Nicholas Backstrom has that hip injury. There's currently no timetable set for his return. Do you see that pretty significantly impacting the Caps? Now, I know that Backstrom is a lot older now, so like maybe we don't rely on him as much as we used to, because like of course in the early days it was Backstrom Ovechkin. That's all it was. Do you see like guys like Kuznetsov picking up the slack, and Ovechkin of course will continue to do what he does, but any other like sort of smaller players that we should look out for there?
No, I mean the biggest thing is on that power play. Kuznetsov, who he's kind of always the X factor on this team. When he was great, we won the cup. Since he's kind of dropped back off, the team really hasn't been the same. So if he can really be that star player, that third real star on the top 6, then the Cavs have a chance. If he's kind of where he was last year, very inconsistent, there's questions off the ice stuff, then I think they'll continue to struggle. He'll definitely be kind of running, that main bank on the power play. I'm sure Oshie will be in the middle, Karlsson up top, Ovechkin on the weak side, and Tom Wilson for the net. So I think a lot will be put on him, and rightly so. He can be a great player. We'll see if it shows up this year.
Okay, and then what seed would you project the Caps to be if you had to give a range, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it'll be a pretty tight division race. But if I had to guess, I would put them as maybe a 5 seed in the East. Yeah, that's probably where I put them. It goes kind of, they're back to the traditional format with the Metropolitan and the Atlantic. So in the Metropolitan division. So no more Boston in their division, which is a plus. But I'd probably put them as third best in the division, behind the Islanders and behind the Penguins.
Okay. Is success and then I open the floor, of course, to K.LC. Is success just winning a playoff series this year? Just to get that off the back. No, it is to go further.
Yeah, just because if you look at this, I mean, this is, you're in a go for a time frame. You have to be with this roster and this roster age group and how long they've been together and what they've done. So you still have to have that kind of success because you're not really building on something next year. This team is really only getting worse. So you're kind of in a go for it all mode. If they want to sell out future draft picks, which I kind of did last year, if they want to do that again this year, I think it would make a lot of sense because that's where you are as a franchise.
Fair enough. K.LC, any questions, any thoughts on the Caps upcoming season?
I have a question about, so I see that preseason starts when this podcast is released. Are the preseason games like the NBA summer games where no people we know play, or are they more like the NBA preseason games where actually teams put their players?
It's a bit of both.
Okay.
It's a bit of both. There will be full games.
It should give some information about how well they are, but not.
Yeah,
okay. For
sure. I mean, I don't know how many preseason games are, probably 6 or something. I bet Ovechkin will play 5 of them. Right. But there will definitely be extended minutes for prospects to get some early minutes. They've cut back on the exhibition games previously. There are a lot more prospects. There's a lot more fighting, and it just really wasn't that constructive. So it is closer aligned with how you would say an NBA preseason.
Nice.
We don't put any stock in like losing preseason games, similar to the NFL or NBA or anything like that. Okay, good, because we've lost all of them so far. We are 0-4 in the preseason so far.
The only thing I would say of note on the season opener, it's against New York Rangers. I don't know if you guys remember how the season ended last year, but there's Tom Wilson hit on Panarin, led to a big fight the next game. In the offseason, the Rangers went and picked up Tom Wilson's biggest rival in the league, Ryan Reeves, who is really the only person in the league that can really throw around Tom Wilson. So I think there's a little bit of the Rangers as a franchise were maybe overreacting because they threw away some good pieces. You guys aren't surprised, but Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, is the owner of the Rangers, so they kind of do crazy stuff. So it's a little bit of living rent free in their head because they're kind of changing around their roster based on one hit. I don't think it leads to long-term success, but there could be some fireworks at week 1. I wouldn't be surprised opening face-off Wilson Reeves. Just go at it.
That sounds fucking awesome to me. Any final thoughts, guys, on the Caps season coming up? K-Dot.
No, wake me up in May. It's football season. I want to watch my FBA-rated football team. I didn't grow up on the Great Lakes. I don't give a shit. It's not time.
All right. Well, you know what?
Wake me up in May. It's 2/3 of the year.
Listen. All right. Thank you, Matt, for the Washington Caps preview. Thank you, K-Dot, for saying wake me up in May. But you were talking about football. It is football season. And so that's sort of what inspired the no hate debate this week, which is centered around the Baltimore Ravens. So they were up by more than one score against the Denver Broncos. And on the very last play of the game, they get the ball back. And entering the game, they had run for over 100 yards in 42 straight games. The NFL record is 43, held by their bitter rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So with the last play of the game, instead of doing what would be considered those, what would be the word? The etiquette is to kneel.
Etiquette, yeah.
Right? The etiquette is to kneel. At that point, the game is over. People cite player safety. They go, there's no need to run another play. Well, the Ravens decided to run another play. They needed 3 yards. They got 5. They ran with Lamar Jackson on a little sweep, and he kneeled over there just next to his sideline, and they tied the record. The question, and Matt, will begin with you here, is did you see a problem with it? Did you have a problem with what the Ravens did to get that record? The game's already over. Now, there's still time on the clock. And then are there any other unwritten rules in sports that you feel just need to be, gone, or any sort of rules that you'd like to see in place?
I mean, to be honest, I didn't, I think player safety was brought up and whatnot, and there were some refutes back and forth. I just think it's a little bit cheap because they were really held under 100 yards, and the defense wasn't even really playing on the last play. You know what I mean? Like they weren't even up on the field. There wasn't a full defense. That was the only thing that's like, you're going for a record, and I guess you got it, but you kind of didn't get it. So that was my biggest problem with that play. But it's not a big deal either way. I didn't understand John Harbaugh saying like, Vic Fangio cares about player safety. Why would he go for a 16-yard touchdown or whatever? But I don't know. You're the losing team. You kind of just play till the time runs out. That's what you're supposed to do. So, that was my 2 cents on that. But I'll save it for my unwritten rules when you open the floor up later. But I want to hear what K-Dot thinks about this.
It wasn't a big deal, and anybody bitching about it needs to go home. Like I kind of follow like I hate Michael Irvin, coke addict. But the idea that Michael Irvin said, if you don't want me celebrating the end zone, stop me. Like that to me is where it is. If you want to talk about player safety, every one of the Ravens should have a choice in that moment, whether or not they want to be on the field or not. If it's the starters or the whatever, we're going to go do that. Same with the Broncos. If you don't want your players to get hurt, fucking forfeit. Walk off the field. Or don't put up a defense at all. Let them do whatever it is they want to do. It doesn't matter if you don't care about the aspect. If you're getting the ball pushed down your goddamn throat, regardless of whatever it is, as long as there's time still left on the clock, play the game. Like I can do whatever I want to. Like we'll get to the more unwritten rules, but this particular situation, I hate this bitching. Like okay, if I'm a Broncos fan, if I'm a Bronco player, I'm gonna get angry. So you know what? I'll circle the calendar for the next time they fucking come around. I'm gonna punch them in the mouth. But that's the sport. That's what you do. They bitching about, they shouldn't have ran the ball. We were going to lose the game. Fuck off, man. Do better. Stop them. If you got a problem, they should have been that close to 100 yards. Stop them even earlier so they couldn't do that. That's on you.
60.
Right. Hold them 60. Exactly. Do that. It ain't what you stop them. You can't. No, that's complete not a horse shit. Fuck them. Fuck off.
I agree. I think, look, there's still time on the clock. There's nothing wrong with the play. Like, if you're worried about safety, maybe football's not the sport you should be looking at. Like, okay, that makes no sense to me to be like, oh, there's one more play. No, that makes no sense to me. I think it's a normal play. If they care about the record, then you can be the opponent and be like, that's so dumb. Why would you care about that? And like, fine, you can have the perspective, but is it wrong for them to do that? No. Now, I do have one thing, because you mentioned other unwritten rules in sports that we could get rid of or maybe make explicit. I think that's the opposite. In tennis, when your opponent does a double fault, you're like not supposed to celebrate or clap because it's like, oh, you didn't do anything to win the point. Fuck that. I think you should just like go arms in the air, like, yeah, you suck, you just double faulted, that was horrible, that's on you, and just let them know that they fucked up.
I think
why would you have to be
I think that makes tennis a little bit more, intriguing to the casual viewer as well. I think that's a decent shout there. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said about like the etiquette sports of like golf and tennis. Like, you're not supposed to celebrate if someone misses like a 1 foot putt. You're not supposed to celebrate, but that would be so funny if someone did.
Just slide on the grass. Like
I would say going back to baseball, which is another sport of a lot of unwritten rules that we've talked about. But I think the dumbest one that just is like, there's times you're allowed to hit someone with a baseball and it's not supposed to really be acted upon. So if there's some banter between the two clubs, or there's, maybe a semi-dirty play, the pitcher's allowed to go up and just hit someone. And, I'm not saying he's like targeting. My biggest problem isn't that they get to like hurt someone. It's that the pitchers don't face they're never going up to bat. So they never face any repercussions for their actions, right? So it's like batters are just the constantly ones just getting beamed with 95-mile-per-hour fastballs in their back. And again, it's not necessarily a safety thing, because I think if you're intentionally hitting someone, you do aim for the back or their leg, where it's like it really hurts, but like not long-term injuries. But I do think if it's just unfair, the pitcher hitter dynamic. I think if you intentionally hit someone, they should get like a free bat throw at you. You should get like
I wrote that in a report in middle school. I said that if a pitcher hits They have to stand on the mound. They get to throw the bat. The pitcher's not allowed to move. You got to toss it.
Yeah. It's good to know that I'm as mature as Kajin was in middle school.
K-Dad's argumentative essays about why
this is more damning to me than I thought it would be. But I think it would just get down plunking because, you know, you can potentially throw at someone and you just never have to face the consequences. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. No, hey, listen, I like that too. Baseball. So a couple quick things, just real quick on LC's thing. You know how in tennis you'll go back and forth, or even ping pong, and it just hits the net. This isn't on a serve, just hits the net, and you have to say sorry. That's dumb as shit. I'm hype.
I apologize.
I'm hype about that. When is anyone genuinely sorry about that?
But
no.
Is there a matter of we're doing this to beat someone, and in theory it's like I kind of messed up.
Well, if you're really sorry, just redo the point. Don't take the point.
But look, in soccer, if I hit the shot and it hits the post and it goes in,
I'm not
nobody's
saying sorry.
fucking apologizing.
Did John McEnroe ever say sorry?
Probably. Wait. If you're playing soccer and you hit off the post and it goes in,
and
that's where you're aiming. That's where
what I'm saying.
Well, it's the same thing. If I'm
if you
aiming over the net,
you're aiming for the net. You aim for the top of the net.
I'm hitting over the net. I'm aiming over the net.
He's aiming over the net in the same way that in soccer. Let's say you had a shot that you were aiming down the middle, and for whatever reason you mishit it and it hit the post. You tell people it hit the post. That's what you were aiming for. That's what happens.
I think the more equivalent would be is in soccer if you're trying to cross the ball in and you mishit it
and it goes in. I'm not saying sorry.
You celebrate that it's like it was any other goal?
Yes, because I want it myself. I'm not telling people.
You're a loser.
You're a loser.
For not honestly, you need it. You need it for your 3 goals a year. All right.
God. Wow. There's a shot.
I don't celebrate those.
Okay. Listen. Here is the unwritten rule. We'll take that off the pod, Matt. Here's the unwritten rule that I wanted to talk about, and it's actually Matt. I know you're a big fan of John Boy. And I was watching a couple of his videos, and there was the video of Fernando Tatis hitting on a 3-0 pitch. And I think he did a really, really good job explaining how absurd that rule is. Where Tatis ends up homering. They're up, I think, 9-3 in the 7th inning. It was something crazy where, like, it's still not over, right? That game's not over. Or maybe it was 10-3. Let's say it was 10-3. The game's not over. And apparently Tatis at the end of the game had to apologize for hitting a home run on a 3-0 pitch because the unwritten rule in baseball is you're not supposed to swing at that. Is the other team no longer trying? No, they're still trying. They're still trying to come back and stuff like that. So I don't get that at all. That seems very archaic. That seems obsolete. That shouldn't be an unwritten rule. That should be nothing. I don't think Tatis did anything wrong in that situation.
No, he definitely did it. And if it was this year, Tatis is not apologizing. I think he was like kind of just bursting on the scene, didn't want to cause too much trouble. But Tatis this year, no way he's apologizing.
And that
is such a dumb rule.
That is the unwritten rule, right? A 3-0 pitch, when you're up by a certain amount, and you got to figure out how large an amount that is, you're not supposed to swing. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a decently big baseball fan, and I'd never heard of that rule until that incident. So it's not talked about that much. It is such a nuanced situation. Like you're up by 7, 7th inning or later, 3-0 count, you're not supposed to swing. It is done. You should be able to swing whenever you want. I mean, they're trying to get you out.
Well, even his manager was like, yeah, we're not about that. Like Tatis's manager was like, we are
have
sorry.
Your players back. The fuck is that?
Yeah, that confused me too. That was another thing. Clearly didn't have that South American pride and blood that I think should be, frankly, everywhere.
We are with them even when they're wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Oh man. Any thoughts, K-Dot? Any unwritten rules?
Yeah, it's just a continuation of what happened in the Ravens Broncos game. I don't think there should be any unwritten rules as far as running up the score, doing any of that shit, celebrating, dancing on people's graves, like whatever you want to do, you should be able to do it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these things that people say are like meaningless stats, they do matter. Like if my team is running just at will against your defense, and I'm like, oh, well, shit, we can get 300 yards a day. I'm going to be in the record books as 300 yards. Fucking do that shit. It's going to help you in contract negotiations. It's going to help you as far as maybe bonuses you get in the year. Even in basketball, you need that triple-double? Use your own basket, especially if they got the fucking
Ricky Davis did that. Ricky Davis did that. That's
what I'm saying. Do your thing. I think it also helps us to contextualize overall in sports what records actually mean. And because, I mean, that's the thing is that Like, I get angry at people that talk about, like, all the yards that Curtis Martin had or all the yards that Emmitt Smith had. I'm like, yeah, he rushed 3 yards of fucking carry when they were getting blown the fuck out. They weren't hard yards, not Jim Brown yards, right? Like, I just think you can contextualize if it's all put in. When somebody says, okay, well, he broke the record for passing yards in the game, yeah, it was against Jacksonville's defense, and they were playing like absolute dog shit. At least we could talk about it in that light. I think the people might take a closer look at what was happening.
Well, I think what we're going to find more and more as more data actually becomes available to everybody is that you can probably determine the yards gained based on win percentages at the time. So if it's between 20% and 80% win probability for, a team or a game, you can count those yards. And in a situation where it's 95% and above, you don't count the yards, assuming there was no comeback. You could do something like that. And I think that would help contextualize. You're talking about contextualizing the yards. Then some of Curtis Martin's don't matter because they were down 45-0. Great run, Curtis. It didn't matter. And similarly to the Ravens running for 5 yards here, the win probability was at 99.9. It was literally impossible to lose that game.
But my thing, as long as you were within the confines of the rule book, you could do whatever you want to do on a field or on a. And that's just what it. And if you want to get revenge, stop them.
So okay. I definitely agree with you should play as hard as you want during, before the game's over. What about at lower levels regarding, I'm fine with the playing hard. What about like, if it's like 100-0 basketball game and you hit a three, should you be throwing up 3 goggles up in your opponent's face?
I mean, Facebook crushing teenage girls right now.
All right. Yeah, I think yes, because we contextualize it all, right? So, like, if I see that and you do it, you should have the ability to do that. And I don't think it should be necessarily poo-poo, but people look at you and be like, well, he was celebrating that 3, but I mean, it really wasn't anything. It's the same way I used to feel about LaRon Landry after you gave up 3rd and 16. You hit somebody really hard, and it's like, you gave him a 3rd and 16. So you can celebrate, cool, do your thing. I don't think it's wrong that you're doing it. You just look like a fucking idiot. Like, I just think that we can make our own judgment on what's happening, but it shouldn't be a universal, oh, they shouldn't have did that. That was against the tenets of the rules. There's unwritten rules in the sport. You can't do that kind of thing.
So if I could just sort of boil it down. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I mean, I disagree. I think when you're up that much, I agree, play as hard as you want. Do what you want. But I don't think you should be like celebrating like crazy.
Like
up
what if it's a rivalry game?
I think it's okay.
That's different.
It's great. Yeah. It's a great area.
honestly, in the pros, I think it's different. I think if it's youth level, that's where you maybe I don't know. Just because there's such a big difference in skill levels.
Okay, all right. Matthew Participation Trophy Regan over here wants us. No, you beat the shit out of your opponent. Beat him in a submission. It's a psychological thing. It scares the next opponent. I just think it all matters. Like if you find out, dog, they beat the fucking team 100-0, and they were throwing up like gang signs and threes and shit after the game. I'm scared of that. That to me is part of the lore.
What do you mean? You act as if, first of all, that gets reported out like it's on Sports Center and it's on a film session. That news does not get out.
Oh no! Every time a team scores like 100 points, and it was like a big blowout, it usually makes the runs. Like you usually see it's trending on Twitter one morning a weekday, and then they show it on Sports Center. And they're like, "Oh my God, look at this blowout!" They usually talk about it. I know it happens in football a lot.
I have no problem with the 100-0 scoreline. I think you should play as hard as you can. Sure. If anything, I think it's more disrespectful to kind of like ease up.
Right.
But yeah, celebrating like I didn't like when U.S. women's are beating Thailand 13-0, and
they were doing the leg
scores her 5th
stuff.
goal, and she's like counting him out. I'm like, geez, but it was the World Cup, so I didn't really care that much.
Right. Yeah, no, that one is a bit great. But I just want to summarize K-Dot's thoughts here. So you're saying so long as there's time on the clock, I mean, any sport, whatever, or in baseball, I guess there's no time, but the game's being played.
T-ball.
Any level. T-ball. You can do whatever the heck you want so long as there is time remaining in the game, no matter what.
You're not breaking the rules. Now, here's the thing. If you're asking whether or not I would do it, if my team is up 30-something to nothing and there's 2 minutes left in the 4th quarter, I'm saying,
you're probably celebrating because it's your first minutes.
Coach, fuck you. Coach, well, I mean, short bursts, right? Short bursts. I'd be coach on the sidelines. Get me the fuck out of here. I'm not getting hurt on some garbage time. Like, that'd be my philosophy, but I think to each his own. I don't think we should necessarily fault anybody. The same way that on that running play for Baltimore, if Lamar Jackson it slipped and cracked something, John Harbaugh should be getting rang through the fucking ringer for doing it. It's all part of just you have to weigh it, but I just don't think it should be it should be a rule. Fuck that. Play.
Final question on that, just to sort of bring it full circle. Because if I'm a member of that Broncos defense and I see that they're lining up against the etiquette, right, and actually running a play, would you understand a cheap shot near the end?
That's
where you're just
outside of the rules.
It is outside of the rules. I'm asking if you would just understand it.
No. It's the same way I do hate in baseball pitchers hitting hitters. I think that's fucking wrong, and I think they need to stop that in that fucking sport.
Okay, fair enough. Cool. I think that's going to go ahead and conclude a very, very solid no-hate debate. I think we got some pretty fun ideas in there as well. And now we're going to conclude the show with the State of the Union, your DC Sports wraparound coverage segment. We're going to begin with the Washington Spirit. Guys, they have been in the news a whole lot. Steve Baldwin, who is the majority owner of the team, resigned as CEO. And who did he put in charge of those new duties? Ben Olsen, the guy he hired to be the club president of operations. So it seems like a bit of a lateral move. Fans really want him to sell the team. That's ultimately what they want. They want new ownership. Michelle Kang seems to be the one they want in charge. We'll see what happens there. We'll let you know here on the State of the Unions if that ever occurs. But there's still soccer to be played. There's still 5 games left for the Washington Spirit, and they're going to be playing 2 this week. They're in 6th place right now. That is the very last playoff spot, and it's really, really tight. So these games are very important. Up next today against Gotham FC at 7 p.m., and then on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. against Racing Louisville. Both games can be seen on Paramount Plus, and they need to win both games to just keep going and make sure they make the playoffs. On to men's soccer, DC United currently in 5th place in the Eastern Conference with 6 games to go, and top 7 make the playoffs in the East. There are no games this coming week because of the men's international break. On to the Wizards. Preseason action begins at the time of this recording. Yep, repping it as well. I promise not to buy any more Wizard jersey. This is a Russell Westbrook jersey. I want everyone to stay on this team. So they play against the Houston Rockets at the time of this recording. And then we have another game on Saturday against the New York Knicks at 7 p.m. Both games can be seen on NBA League Pass. They are not on NBC Sports Washington. You need to have NBA League Pass in order to see it. Okay. Rui Hachimura. Now, this is big news. He's out indefinitely because of mental health issues. So people have talked. One of the things he did recently was on IG, he unfollowed just about everybody. And so people were like, oh, does he want to leave the Wizards? Stuff like that. I don't know. But I think he's going through something, wishing him a speedy recovery, that he feels like himself. So basketball aside, I just hope Rui is taking the time he needs to be able to feel like himself, to get right, etc. So that's Rui. That's the Wizards. And then the Caps, once again, Matt gave us that season preview, and thank you again for that. It starts a week from today. And until then, there are some preseason games. As I said, we lost the first 4, but it's okay. They do not count. We've got 2 left. Today against the Boston Bruins at 7 p.m., and then on Friday against the Philadelphia Flyers at 7 p.m. If you want to see those, if you want to see the games that we lost, those are all on ESPN+. And finally, last but not least, well, maybe least, the Washington Nationals. Matt, would you like to conclude the episode here?
Well, the season concluded, and the Nats were kind of in the national spotlight because how big of the series was for the Boston Red Sox. And, you know, they played their part. They got swept. Bo Sox got in the playoffs. We got our AO wild card. Yankees, Red Sox that I think a lot of people wanted. But it is a special shout out. Juan Soto, a torrid second half of the season. And is, despite how bad they were, despite how, you know, how few wins ahead, he's probably the front runner for NL MVP. A beast of a season. Need to get him locked up.
Need to get him locked up. And that, again, was the point of a lot of those trades, was to free up money so that we could lock up Juan Soto to a long-term deal. And that's going to conclude the State of the Union, your DC Sports wraparound coverage. And that's going to conclude the episode. This is District Divided. Thank you so much for listening. This is a DC Sports podcast releasing every Wednesday at 3 p.m. I am Amit. That is Matt. That is K-Dot. That is LC. Thank you again so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. Take it easy.